So cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. We're talking quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends, NFL draft preview. Let's get into the video.
ATL Jacob.
The Chase Sports Podcast, where we bring unique inside analysis to your favorite collegiate and professional sports. I am your host again today, Matt Ricketts. I'm alongside my boys here, Chase Yance, obviously, and Brady King. Chase, how's it going, man?
Going all right. Glad to be here.
Brady, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. You know, it's a slow Monday, but we're getting through it, and good to be back.
Good to be back. All right. Well, to kick it off today, guys, we're gonna talk about some quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends coming in. You know, with the NFL draft coming up, heavy into draft season. So we're going to start off with the quarterbacks. Obviously, Brady, we're going to go to you first. We got C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, obviously the two guys that are towards the top of everybody's leaderboard in quarterbacks this year. But let's go ahead and get your top 5 quarterbacks coming into the draft this season.
Yeah, so coming in at my number 1 spot is C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State. It's pretty close between the top 2. C.J., in my opinion, just edges him out because I think he's the much better pocket passer compared to Bryce Young. His ball placement, his arm is just quite a bit better. But Bryce Young obviously has the magic as well, who comes in at number 2. His ability to extend plays and make the magic happen. And, whenever Bama needs a touchdown or a field goal at the end, you can always count on Bryce Young. The moment's never too big for him. So he's a really clutch player and just a really good skill set. Now, those are the only 2 guys I have going in the first round, or that I think should go in the first round. Third, I have Hendon Hooker. I think he really showed that he can make big throws last year for Tennessee. Obviously, he's pretty old, but I don't think that matters. He's a big dude. He can run. He can throw bombs. He made some tough throws last year. And he would be higher if it wasn't like one read stuff because Tennessee ran a gimmicky offense. But I would say he's a second to third round type of player, in my opinion. Fourth, I have Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Showcased his velocity through the fastest football at the combine and the velocity challenge. So he obviously has an arm and can move very well as well. And I just it's good to – he makes quite a few great throws on his tape as well. And at 5, I have Anthony Richardson. A lot of people would have Anthony Richardson and Will Levis high up on their list. However, I don't love to watch players that don't throw the ball accurately to their receivers. So there's big issues with Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. Was not a top 10 quarterback in college football this last season, so I don't get why he would be, a top 10 pick. But the reason he's at 5 is because he does have a big arm and he can run well. So really his legs are the reason I put him here, just because it's a weaker quarterback class outside the top 2. But it's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, if I was making a list, that would be exactly what I had, Brady. So I agree pretty good. Chase, in terms of, what do you think of Brady's list, number 1, and then second, give me some guys maybe that are under the radar, quarterback guys that not necessarily anybody's talking about.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think C.J. Stroud's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I think because of Carolina moving up and, Frank Reich's past when it comes to dealing with quarterbacks, he's dealt with guys like Carson Wentz. He's, dealt with an Andrew Luck, just big guys, big quarterbacks, the prototypical quarterback that you would want to have. C.J. Stroud has good size, good arm strength, all that good stuff. So I do think C.J. Stroud is the number 1 pick in this thing. But I personally think Bryce Young's a better prospect, okay? I saw a lot more in college, you know what I'm saying? I saw a lot of magic from him in college. I think – I'm not going to say consistency. They were both, pretty consistent when it came to their work. But I just think, Bryce Young as a talent, just he actually wows me. C.J. Stroud is a very good talent. I just don't get a specific, oh, wow, all right? Bryce Young has the wow factor. He's the eye candy, all right? So the pizzazz, you know what I'm saying? But that's not to discredit CJ Stroud or anything like that. I still think he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I still think he's going to be a very, very good quarterback in the National Football League. I think Bryce Young's going to be dependent on the system that he, goes into and all. But I just think when we're talking about prospect wise, I think Bryce Young is a better eye-catching prospect. I think CJ Stroud will be the top overall pick in this draft.
I think I'm the opposite in both ways. I mean, I think they're really close prospect, but I actually think Bryce Young is going to be the first pick in this draft, only because, and that's not because I'm looking outside the box or anything.
Yeah,
I think Adam Schefter said that it's almost a done deal for Bryce Young. So
I did see that.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm gonna I guess I'm just gonna believe that as of now, but yeah, that's all I was gonna say. Is I have a feeling Bryce will be the first pick. However, I personally would take CJ because I think his arm is the better arm. But yeah,
I'm just going off of the background that Frank Reich has had when it comes to those quarterbacks overall that he's coached in the past, and he's had success with those guys. And obviously with the news that Adam Schefter came out with that Bryce Young canceled all of his other pre-draft visits and he's visited with the Panthers and the Texans, that people are going to basically all signs show that Bryce Young's going to be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, is it a bad pick? No, not one bit. All right. Either way they go, I think Carolina's going to, get, a great young talent in their organization. It's just a little surprising from the fact of Frank Reich's past, but yeah, I would agree with you that CJ Stroud should be the number 1 overall pick, but it all just depends on the team and Frank Reich. It's a lot of this stuff when it comes to these quarterbacks is the situation that they're put in. All right. Like, the 2020 draft class is a great example when it comes to, okay, you guys have, Burrow comes into a bad situation with the Cincinnati Bengals, but, he's a great talent. They build around him. Justin Herbert goes into a bad organization with the Chargers. They build around him. He's a great talent already. Tua Tagovailoa, he's a not bad talent. I know Matt calls him Tua shithead sometime, but, they build around him. They built around him like crazy that year. All right. And then the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, they built around Jalen Hurts that well. And then, Hurts gets a big deal today with, 5 years, $255 million. It just depends on, what teams are looking for in their quarterback and then what you can do to surround your quarterback. I think that's a big thing. But I mean, either way it goes, I think, the Panthers are going to be getting a very, very good quarterback there. And a lot of talk is the Texans probably don't take a quarterback at 2. There's a chance that they don't take a quarterback at 2, which, I'm not going to go with long Nick Davis Mills as my starting quarterback for the next couple of years. I mean, I'm taking if CJ gets picked, I'm taking Bryce. If Bryce gets picked, I'm taking CJ at 2. So these two are the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft, head and shoulders above. It's not even close. I'll go as far and say the rest of these guys are a bunch of scrubs. I mean, compared to these two. I mean, but going back to what Matt was asking, a guy under the radar and all, I think if Stetson Bennett goes into a great organization with a great cast around him and he has to step in for a game or two to at least just manage a game, I think he's a pick there in the later rounds that you should watch out for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that dude's a winner. I mean, he's proved it at the collegiate level, the big time stage. He's a cocky son-bitch, but he gets the job done. He gets the job done when it counts. Yep. Let's go ahead and transition to receivers here. Brady, we got our man Jackson Smith and Jigba up there, right? Quentin Johnson, Blitnikoff winner, Jordan Addison. Last year's Blitnikoff winner, Jalen Hyatt, amongst other guys. Let's go ahead and give the top 5 receiver list here, coming into this year.
So, for receivers, this one's kind of a tough list to put together. Solid wide receiver class, not elite, but we do have some really good ones at the top. It just drops off a little compared to the past couple of years. Number 1, I have Jackson Smith and Jigba by far. This one isn't a debate as opposed to the last list, which was quarterbacks. I think he will be. He's a really good prospect. One of the best wide receiver prospects in the past few drafts. And elite route running, great after the catch, very quick. His hands are ridiculous, and he's just a big play guy. I mean, he had 1,600 yards next to Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson in 2021, and who knows what he would have done this year. If you need a receiver and you're up towards the top, you got to take Jackson Smith and Jigba. Number 2, I have Quentin Johnston. really good player. 6, I think he measured in around 6'3", but a big body nonetheless. He runs too. He runs with the ball well. He's good after the catch, surprisingly for his height, and he can win the jump ball as well. Just honestly was pretty easily my second receiver prospect, and definitely a really good player. Number 3, I have Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Kind of a slightly worse version of JSN, I feel like, in my opinion. Definitely not the route runner, but after the catch, he's a good player, and he can catch the ball well, very well as well. Really like Zay Flowers' complete game for sure. 4, I have Jalen Hyatt, and now this is higher than a lot of people have him because people think he's a one-trick pony and all that. But in a receiver class that's not extremely deep, why not take a really good one-trick pony at 4? He's obviously extremely good at running the deep ball. If he gets a good release against any DB, he's beating them because I know he only ran a 4.4, but he feels faster than that, and he runs the deep. He runs the go ball very, very well. And now we have another Blitnikoff winner at number 5, Jordan Addison. I think he's a little overrated. Still like him a lot. Would not take him in these next 2, 4 and 5, Jalen and Jordan. I would take maybe in the second round. Jordan's a good player. He's got good speed, not elite. Good route running, not elite. Good. Everything is very solid. So he's a good player, but he's not a guy that I think you take and you immediately is like a great player because he had some good quarterbacks in college. With Kenny Pickett last year, then Caleb Williams this year. And he's a proven player, so he still gets recognized.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with most of that list. I think I'd probably move Flowers down a little bit, move the Blitnikoff guys up. But you're no doubt Jordan Addison did play with a lot of great quarterbacks in college. Chase, let's go ahead and slide it over to you. What do you think of this list? Number 1, number 2. Give us another guy under the radar maybe that you think could pop into the higher rounds this year.
All right, so 1's pretty clear, JSN. I mean, obviously, it's the best receiver out of that entire class. It was a shame that you didn't get to play a whole lot this season. I got to play in really about 2 or 3 games. Whatever team he goes to, I mean, they're going to be getting an absolute superstar there. I see him falling anywhere between 9 and 12, I would say. If for some reason Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski were off the board, the Bears could draft another receiver if they wanted to. But I do see him falling to Tennessee or Houston. That, I think Tennessee, they're going to have to get some things figured out at receiver, and JSN would be, obviously the perfect guy to have in there. And then Houston as well. Houston, they, gave up Brandon Cooks in a trade. They have absolutely no receivers down there, so they got to get somebody in there, going forward. I actually think that Zay Flowers is number 2. I'll say this. He's not falling past 14. The Patriots and Zay Flowers is the worst kept secret in the National Football League. If he's at 14 and the Patriots have a chance to grab him, he's going to the Patriots. All right. I don't know. I'm just, I'm very enamored by Zay Flowers as a receiver. He's a pretty good route runner overall. He, great after the catch. I think that's another sleeper. I know he's going to be up there. I think he's going to be at about pick 14 with the Patriots. So that should be pretty interesting. But I got Flowers at 2. Looking at Jalen Hyatt, I think he's going to fall anywhere between 20 and 25. The Chargers, he might be linked at the Chargers. He could also be linked toward to the Minnesota Vikings as well, who, they got to fill a hole with Adam Thielen leaving there, going to Carolina. Jordan Addison, I like the list, Brady. I think I would put Zay Flowers at 2. I'd move Hyatt and Addison up. I move Quentin Johnston back. I know he's the Biletnikoff receiver and all this past year, but when I'm looking at where they're going to be drafted at, I think Quentin Johnston is going to be the 4th or 5th receiver off this board. I think he'll end up in Buffalo. Is all I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think I got.
Yeah. I was going to say, just to prefer for everybody watching, I know you know this, but for everybody watching, I'm not saying this is the order of receivers they'll go. This is just my opinion on the 5 best.
Yeah,
so he's probably right. I do think Zay Flowers will go to the Patriots at 14. And then I also think that Jordan Addison will go higher than I have him and all that too, for sure.
Yeah, and I think all these receivers are some great talents overall. It's just I think I think Johnston's going to fall to about 27. I think he's a the best jump ball receiver in this draft, like by far. All right. But I think teams are going to want a guy that can do it all, like obviously up front, like a JSN or a Zay Flowers, so they can move around all places and get, ridiculous yards after the catch. I know Quentin Johnston can get those yards after the catch, but he's got to prove it a bit more. And then Jordan Addison, I think late first round, he could fall early second round. I know, people in the Steelers organization might want to see him there at 32. So that's another possibility where he could be linked to. So, I agree with those 5 being in the top 5 of receivers. I think that's a pretty easy one right there.
Yeah, my honorable mention would have been Josh Downs out of North Carolina.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to ask you, Brady. Where you saw him falling. He was kind of the guy, I think maybe third round for me, second, third round. I mean, he's coming into the season, he was Drake May's number 1 target. You know what I mean? He was highly thought. I would say projected is a good word. Yeah, highly projected so far. Coming into the season in terms of what receivers were coming out. You know what I mean? So what do you think about that, Brady?
Yeah, I still think I would take him. Second and third round, like you said. I thought he had some really good games this year. More drops than I expected from him. He had a big time drop. I forget which game it was, but it lost them the game. I think it might have been Georgia Tech. But he's still very explosive. He's a good route runner. He's very good at catching the ball in traffic. For being a shorter receiver, he's about 5'10". But I think he would be right behind Jordan Addison for me. Very close. I think the top 3 are easily my top 3, and then Hyatt, Addison, and Josh Downs are like another tier. Well, I'll rephrase this. JSN, tier of his own. Quentin Johnston and Zay Flowers, tier 2. Tier 3, Hyatt, Addison, and Downs.
Excellent. Gotcha. All right, let's go ahead and transition over to tight ends now. Coming out, obviously the big boy, Big Darnell from Georgia is up there, the top of the list coming out. You got Michael Mayer, a guy who us Ohio State fans saw firsthand this year with Notre Dame. Even another guy, Dalton Kincaid, we've seen him, with Utah, playing him a couple years ago. Brady, who do you think, are the top 5 tight ends coming out this year?
So my number 1 tight end is Darnell Washington. And that is for the reason that he's the best blocker out of all these guys. And he's also very, I don't know how to phrase this, just nasty. Like, he does not care what the defender next to him thinks. He's going to try to push you into the ground. And he catches everything thrown at him. And he can move with the ball after the catch. He hurdled people last year. So I just think the upside of Darnell Washington, and there's not really much of a chance I think that he busts. Just an unreal player. And if his teammate was coming out, he would be number 1, Brock Bowers. But Darnell's a beast. Number 2, I have Michael Mayer, another extremely complete tight end. Great blocker, really good receiver, kind of undersized, still 6'4", just a little undersized. Just a great overall tight end, and I think he's going to be very good as well. 3, I have Dalton Kincaid, who to me is the best receiving tight end in this class. He just isn't the blocker that Darnell or Michael Mayer is, and that's a problem. It's not a huge deal because he can still be utilized as a weapon in the passing game, but I don't think he can be like a sole number 1 tight end just due to the fact that he could get blown up by some of these guys. 4, I have Sam Laporta, who also I believe is a little undersized. Just a great college career, though. He was always the only good player on Iowa's offense. And he was the only one you really feared, but great hands, pretty good after the catch, good route runner, just a complete tight end, just not the biggest dude. And then 5, I have Luke Musgrave at Oregon State. I saw some drops from him this year, but I also saw some really, really good stuff. Part of the reason they were so good was because of him in the passing game. Very good tight end prospect. Just not quite the top 3 are easily the top 3, as if I could do a tier. Darnell, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid are in the tier 1. Those are the 3, which is a good tight end class because they're all good tight ends. And then the second tier would be Laporta and Musgrave.
Excellent. I agree with this list, especially the top three. Now, for me personally, I'm not going to act like I know a ton about a lot of the Titans coming out. Just in terms, but when you get to the top of the list, yes, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen them both firsthand. We've seen all three of those guys firsthand. So I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to that. But when we get into Luke Musgrave, I've heard the name, obviously, but just breaking it down, I couldn't give you necessarily a fair assessment on that. But headed over to Chase. What do you think of Brady's list one? And then let's go ahead. Let's go with the comparison here. Pick a guy in this top 5 list and give us, who does he remind you of in the NFL today? Or even doesn't even have to be today in the past.
I mean, I rock with the list. I do. I don't think there's really anything that I would change with this whole thing. I think you knocked it out of the park there. I think Michael Mayer is going to be the first guy off the board. Great receiving tight end. You can move him around. I'm not saying that he is built like Travis Kelce, but whoever he goes to, you can use him like a Travis Kelce. This is the modern day tight end is just a bigger receiver, just in a larger frame that's 6'6", 260. It can go over the middle and catch passes that you can line up out wide and take them all different directions. I think Mayer kind of reminds me in a bit of a way like a Travis Kelce in that type of regard for wherever team, picks him. I think he's going to go mid to end first of the first round. I mean, I would love the Cincinnati Bengals to draft this greater Northern Kentucky area kid who went to Covington Catholic High School. I would not be opposed to that one bit. If that presents it. Darnell Washington, I think, will go second off the board, end of the first round. Whoever gets him, I mean, they're going to get an absolute unit of a tight end there. Great blocker, great pass catcher. Just exactly. Yeah, exactly, dude. He's the real deal there. And if he was there at 28 for the Bengals, I wouldn't mind taking him at all either. The third guy, Kincaid, I see him end of the first, start of the second. Injury concerns. Obviously, tight end is one of the most physical positions in football. You gotta be a very good run blocker to be on the field, but also you gotta be able to catch the football very well. He's had some injury problems there at Utah. I think whatever team he goes to, I think he could end up being a part of a tight end duo to start, and then I think he could take over eventually. But I think Kincaid end of round 1, start of round 2 would be nice. And then Laporta and Musgrave, those are round 2 tight ends. I think those are some good day 2 selections right there. Haven't really watched a whole lot of them overall, but you're going to be getting some pretty good ballers in them as well.
Absolutely. So I guess, does anybody have anybody here that kind of flies under the radar for tight ends? Because I can't think of anybody necessarily. You know what I mean, Brady? Brady, do you have anybody?
Yeah. I don't have anybody necessarily.
It's kind of one of those positions. It's harder if you're not in the top 3 to 5 coming out of the draft. It's like, you know what I mean? So, Chase, you have anything before we close it off here?
It's a deep class, but those 5 are the 5. I don't think there's really anything else that'll, that can change and all that. I think those are the first 5 that'll be up the board for tight ends. Before we get on out of here, though, I would like to say, we didn't talk a whole lot about Will Levis. He wasn't on the top 5. He wasn't in Brady's top 5. A lot of people think that he's a top 3 or 4 quarterback in this draft. A lot of the analysts think that. I'm going to call a shot. I think he's going to go top 4, man.
Wow.
If that happens, I'll have zero. And I agree. It definitely could happen. I would have zero respect for whoever drafts him because
I think he's going to the Colts.
I'll call a shot as well.
I got a niche. He's going.
My shot is that Will Levis will suck in the NFL. and
I'll call a shot too.
Is the Pope still Catholic? Oh my gosh!
Everything that people say about him to me is just straight up like not true. Like people act like he's this like freak of nature throwing the ball down the field. I think his arm is strong, but I've seen so much stronger many times. Anthony Richardson, who also sucks, still. I'll admit that he has an absolute cannon. He has an absolute cannon, but that doesn't mean he's good. Levis, decent arm to throw downfield, but still inaccurate. decent size. He's big, but so are many other quarterbacks. Can't run that well. Just there's been nothing that has shown that he's like some type of great quarterback prospect, and I'd love to know what it is because he could not beat out Sean Clifford, and it was like a real thing. Like it's not like he should have either. I don't think he was a better college quarterback than Sean Clifford. Like I don't think they made a mistake there necessarily. Like I think they would have been about the same with both, because watching Will Levis started games for Penn State, like they gave him a chance, and he was awful.
Yep.
Like. And then he transfers to Kentucky. I think he had a decent year in 21, had Wan'Dale Robinson. They were a decent team, but it was nothing crazy. Then this year, he regressed. I mean, you guys remember Tennessee's pass defense, right? So bad, Anthony Richardson.
Oh, dude, it was like they built that up to be maybe one of Tennessee's upset alert games going into it with Kentucky playing Tennessee because of how good Will Levis was going to be able to torch that secondary. He didn't do shit.
Yeah. Remember how so Anthony Richardson's first 200-yard game, like over 200-yard passing game, was against Tennessee. He threw for 400.
Yeah.
And Will Levis threw for less than 100 yards and 3 picks.
It was gross. It was terrible.
It was awful. It was a pathetic. Will Levis wouldn't even be number 6, maybe 7, probably 8.
All I got to say is he's going to be a top 3. He's going to be a top 3 quarterback taken off the board. As much as I don't think he is either, he's going to end up being that. I think Will Levis to the Colts.
I don't think you're crazy.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I've been hearing that too, which just every time I see it, just makes me laugh. Like, I'm really hoping that this is a Malik Willis situation where everyone's acting like he's going to go high, and then it's kind of like a bluff, and he goes in the 3rd round. But I don't think it is. I think he's actually going to go in the top 10, which is.
It happens. It happens once a year, man. What do we think about Trey Lance getting picked in the top 3? I mean, we all thought, we all knew it should have been Justin Fields, or people were even behind for Mac Jones and all.
It was just absolutely
a
disgrace. I mean, the Niners might have won like 2 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah,
they might have.
There's a good chance there. But yeah,
I'll say this. At least Trey Lance had a good year of college. His first year starting, he threw 0 picks. Obviously, I think it was an idiotic move, and I never would do it. But at least there was somewhat of a reason there that he was a high pick.
Right.
This Will Levis, it's just not there. I just don't get it. I don't. It might be the most I've never gotten a guy that's supposed to be this high. That's because again, the Malik Willis thing. Malik Willis had a really strong arm. He just wasn't. He wasn't very accurate, and so. I don't believe in potential as much as a lot of people do. I don't think Anthony Richardson will end up translating. I just think I would still take him 5th, but later in the rounds because he's so fast and he can run. He can get out of stuff. But Levis.
I'll say this. If Will Levis gets drafted high, it's got to be to a team that already has a quarterback in place, and they have to develop him. As hard as that would even be to develop Will Levis and try to get him into the right mold of a quarterback possible, they would have to be a situation there. Indy, they have Sam Ehlinger as their quarterback right now. If Will Levis walks in there, Will Levis is probably going to start, which is crazy to think. He's going to the Colts, and we're going to see him start week 1, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We got a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting quarterback situations with teams coming in the NFL draft this year. Before we get out of here, boys, you guys have any closing thoughts or anything like that?
Will Levis is not good.
Chase, you good?
Will Levis is a Colt. That's all I got to say.
All right, there you go. From Matt Ricketts to Chase Yance to Brady King, this is the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. We will see you next episode.